Peter received 2 emails from Victoria and 1 from Elizabeth, both wanting to discuss various matters. As he began to read through them, he felt a strange mixture of emotions: curiosity about the unfolding situation back home, concern for Aliana and Petra, and a lingering sense of hope for what his future might hold. Each message pulled him deeper into the complexities of his life, but for now, he was determined to focus on the task at hand and the relationship that was slowly blossoming in front of him. Peter sat in silence, staring at the screen in front of him. He had deleted all of Victoria's previous messages without even reading them, shutting her out completely. Yet, there was one message he couldn't ignore: the letters from his children, especially from Miranda. She missed him terribly and kept him updated on the family drama swirling around them. He read about how everyone seemed to be pointing fingers, especially with 2 uncles in jail and Aunt Elizabeth facing criticism for not warning the company about impending troubles. One of the last emails Miranda sent included a large PDF attachment from his lawyer. With a heavy heart, Peter downloaded it and began to read. As he leaned back, tears welled in his eyes. The divorce was now official. He was single again. As he sifted through the legal documents, he noticed how the lawyer had managed to negotiate fairly, especially given Victoria's solid job. The support terms were set for only 5 years, and Victoria would keep the house and a substantial portion of their savings. A note from the lawyer explained that the judge had initially suggested counseling, but given Peter's current situation abroad, it wasn't feasible. At the end of the documents was a handwritten letter from Victoria, scanned into a PDF entitled "Please read me to the end." With a deep sigh, Peter opened it. "Dear Peter," it began. "I think you deleted everything I sent without looking, and honestly, I can't blame you. You must be hurt, and I understand that the divorce papers were hard for me, too. They made me reflect on myself. Both Miranda and Elizabeth have had strong words for me, and Miranda has encouraged me to seek help. These past few months of counseling have been tough, but they've helped me see things more clearly." Peter felt a pang in his heart as he read on. "Dear Peter, I have so many regrets. I'm truly sorry for how I treated you over the years. I can't find the right words to share my feelings. I regret every joke I played on you, and I can't imagine the pain I caused. I understand now that there's no way to fix things, and you've moved on. When I saw how being around Kevin changed your feelings about me, I knew it was time to sign the divorce papers." His breath caught as he continued. "I want you to know that I never cheated on you. Nothing ever happened between us. My counselor and I believe I have a strange way of sabotaging my own happiness. I might push away what I love as a way to cope with my problems. It sounds odd, but it's the best explanation we've found. I still love you deeply. When you come back, can we please talk like we used to? I hope I haven't hurt you so much that you can't trust anyone again. I wish you happiness with someone who makes you feel comfortable. You'll always have a place in my heart. With love, Victoria." Peter felt a flicker of hope for her, but he quickly extinguished it. "Not with me." He took a moment to reflect, pouring himself a drink as he gazed at the wild landscape outside. The following morning, Aliana entered the room and noticed Peter's serious demeanor. Concern flared in her chest. Had he changed his mind about their conversation yesterday? Quietly, she opened her laptop to get to work, checking the company's bank accounts. Just then, Peter walked in from the kitchen, setting a cup of coffee in front of her, still looking troubled. "Something's bothering you, isn't it?" she asked, taking a deep breath. "Is it about what happened yesterday?" Peter looked up, surprised. No, it's not about you. I received some surprising news yesterday." "Oh, I'm sorry. Can I help?" "No, it's actually good news. My divorce is final, but I got a letter from my ex-wife that's been on my mind." Aliana raised an eyebrow. "She wants you back?" "Yes, but she knows that won't happen. I'll never go back to that life." He paused, reflecting. Can I tell you why I divorced her?" As he spoke, he shared the painful journey he had gone through with Victoria and her family. He recounted the joke that had pushed him over the edge and the betrayal he felt from his sister-in-law, who hadn't warned him about her brother's actions. As he explained, Aliana's disbelief transformed into anger when she learned that the person who had hurt Peter was connected to her workplace and possibly scamming her neighbors. "I need to stop him," she declared, determination in her voice. Peter, however, gently suggested she take a step back. "Let's be careful. It's not worth putting yourself in danger over this." As the conversation shifted, Peter mentioned another email he had received, this one from a dear friend. "She wrote to tell me that she's getting married. She's also been promoted to head of security at GC, so she understands my mission here. I trust her just like I trust you." Aliana looked surprised. "You trust me? You hardly know me." Peter smiled warmly. "Absolutely. A mother who might betray her employer wouldn't endanger her daughter. Plus, I sense that we share something deeper." Her curiosity piqued. Aliana asked, "And what exactly are your feelings for me?" Peter took her hands in his gaze sincere. "Aliana, I care deeply for you. I plan to ask for your hand in marriage as soon as this situation is resolved, and with your father's blessing, of course. That is, if you would consider being my wife." A moment of silence enveloped them, the only sound being the steady ticking of a clock. Then he added, "Aliana, will you marry me?" She was taken aback, processing his words. Leaning against him for support, she gathered her courage. "Yes," she whispered, "I never thought I would be someone's wife, but with all my heart, yes." Doubt flickered in her mind, and she stammered, "But you've kept your distance until now. We haven't spent much time together, and you're asking me this. I don't understand." "Aliana, I want to respect your feelings. If you need more time," Peter began, but she shook her head. "No, I want this. I just need to wrap my head around it. You've been through so much, and it's all happening so fast." Peter smiled softly, reassuring her. "I'll be right here, every step of the way." Aliana felt warmth spread through her, her heart racing with possibilities as she considered their future. Peter sat quietly in his small office, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. Aliana leaned into his embrace, her warmth comforting him as he wrestled with his thoughts. "I believe we should wait until marriage for any gestures of affection," she said softly, her voice steady and sincere. He smiled, touched by her conviction. "I can support that. While I might not entirely agree, I understand where you're coming from." "You're a wonderful man," Aliana whispered, gazing up at him with affection. "I believe we should wait until my father gives you permission and we are married. I'm sure he won't oppose you." That very evening, Peter felt a surge of determination. He sat down to write an email to Meredith, using his satellite uplink to explain his suspicions regarding the current situation in Iran. He outlined everything he had discovered so far and listed the supplies he needed, including someone who could blend in with the global constructions, GC, employees to gather vital information. After meticulously composing the message, he attached the documents he had gathered. "Now we wait," he thought to himself, a sense of urgency creeping in. Later that night, he made a decision that had been gnawing at him for days. He headed to the GC office, a place he had been avoiding for far too long. As he approached the building, an uneasy feeling washed over him. The company had hired a local security firm for round-the-clock service, including a doorman. Yet, as he scanned the entrance, there was no doorman in sight. During the 2 hours he spent watching, the security guards remained motionless, as if frozen in time. Around 4 a.m., after feeling the weight of the night pressing down on him, he decided it was time to act. He fished out the keys he had received with his authorization and carefully checked for security cameras before entering the building. After ensuring the coast was clear, he found success. The second key unlocked the door with a satisfying click. Peter stepped inside, gripping his flashlight tightly. As he moved through the dimly lit corridors, he found the office belonging to his rival, Kevin RHS. Next to it was a small room with a counter and a back door leading to the rear of the property where payments were processed. A quick glance at RHS's desk revealed a laptop, surprisingly unlocked. With a mix of adrenaline and caution, Peter opened the hard drive and discovered something shocking. RHS was maintaining a second set of books and misusing company resources. It dawned on him that the information could connect to the global GC network. Next time, I should bring a flash drive to clone the database, he thought, his mind racing. After an hour of sleuthing, he decided it was time to leave. He exited through the back door, once again checking for cameras. As he stepped out into the cool morning air, he quickly sent an email to Meredith, inquiring whether it would be legal to clone the laptop in Kevin's office. It would save him another late-night visit. He also had a personal question: what would it take to bring Aliana and Petra back home with him? He included a copy of Aliana's birth certificate and the other documents she had prepared for him. 2 weeks later, he received a response, an address, a digital cargo airway bill, and 2 sets of numbers for unlocking a container. After reviewing the information, he realized he would need a larger vehicle for the task ahead. A minivan would do nicely. He asked Aliana to rent one from a nearby city to keep things under the radar in their village. The following morning, he set off before dawn. The trip went smoothly, and he picked up a small, heavy container at the designated warehouse. It was locked tight, and he felt a sense of accomplishment as he and Aliana worked together to move it inside once they returned to his house. That night, after returning the van to the rental office, Peter finally sank into bed, exhaustion washing over him. Just after midnight, he awoke refreshed and ready to face the day. He savored his coffee, contemplating the 6 months he had spent in Iran. The investigation was beginning to show promise. When Aliana arrived, they were eager to unpack the container together. The sets of numbers she had brought were needed to unlock it. As the container creaked open, it revealed compartments like an old toolbox. The top drawers held cameras and setup tools, while the bottom housed 2 laptops, one with a satellite receiver attached, along with extensive documentation, a thumb drive, another receiver, and a sealed envelope addressed to Peter with a special stamp. They dove into their work. The laptop with the attached receiver was a clone of the one RHS used, keeping it updated in real time. The other laptop was set up for secure communication via the GC network and had a keylogger installed. The thumb drive contained a personal message. "My dear Peter and Aliana, I'm so glad you two have found each other. Inside this envelope are the documents you will need for Aliana and Petra's visa once you get married. Aliana, your excellent English skills and education have been incredibly helpful. We've also informed the consulate. Now for some important news: as long as the laptop owned by RHS is connected to GC, we shouldn't face any legal issues. It allowed us to make a copy and set up tracking software. Just remember not to use the copied laptop for anything other than checking it. Anything you do on it will show up on the original. I've arranged for someone to keep a close eye on RHS. They will remain hidden until the investigation yields clear results. They have significant influence in Iran, which is why we could supply you with the necessary tools. When I shared your concerns, they quickly agreed to help. Please be cautious, RHS has an insider in the GC offices. We know their identity and will act as soon as you can prove RHS is misleading us. Stay vigilant, he poses a significant threat, possibly linked to the strange events surrounding your arrival. We're still unsure why he hasn't followed up on that, perhaps due to Aliana's uncle, who desires a calm situation. With love. Meredith." A week later, just after midnight on Sunday, Peter braced himself for the most challenging part of his job. Arriving at the office, he felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. The time had come to uncover the truth. Peter slipped through the back door of the Global Constructions office, a sense of relief washing over him as he found the security company was absent for the night. After a week of carefully establishing a routine, he had noticed the security checks were lax after hours, typically wrapping up well before 6 p.m. He had also ensured there were no cameras or security systems to monitor his movements. Settling behind Kevin Rhodes's desk, Peter contemplated where to place hidden cameras to capture all the action in the office, as well as how to conceal the transmitter. His mind raced with possibilities, and after some careful thought, he began his covert setup. Over the next 3 nights, he managed to install 6 cameras, 4 in Rhodes's office and 2 in the area where salaries were processed. After testing the setup, he was pleased to see the laptop screen clearly, allowing him to observe all the transactions as money was sorted into envelopes. On the 3rd night, as dawn broke and the office was still quiet, Peter meticulously cleaned up after his work. Just as he finished, the sound of a key turning in the front door sent his heart racing. Quickly, he concealed his tools and turned off his flashlight, slipping out the back door and vanishing into the shadows. Once safely in his rental car, he exhaled sharply, that had been too close for comfort. But the work was finally done. Now, all he had to do was wait and see what unfolded next. Around 8 a.m., Peter returned the rental car and set off on foot toward his own vehicle, enjoying the brisk morning air. As he walked, he noticed someone in heavy clothing trailing him, their footsteps echoing on the pavement. He decided to change his route, walking into a small square where a quaint cafe caught his eye. He took a seat at one of the outdoor tables, ordering a cup of coffee and a seameat, a round bagel topped with sesame seeds that he loved. As he sipped his coffee, the person following him sat down across the table. "Meredith sends her regards," the woman said, a smirk crossing her lips. Peter felt a surge of happiness. "I appreciate that," he replied, nodding in acknowledgement. "You did well at the office," she continued. "But it was quite a close call. Don't worry, no one else noticed. I only caught you because I was checking on that door." "Thanks," Peter said, smiling. "I had no idea Meredith had a connection like you. Are you here to give me my report? Do we need to meet somewhere, or can you come to my house?" The woman looked at him, her expression serious. "Do you trust me? Just because I shared Meredith's message?" Peter hesitated for a moment, considering the gravity of the situation. "In Iran, only 3 people know about Meredith's connection to me, my fiancé, and you. Rhodes knows about my past but nothing about Meredith. Yes, I think I can trust you. What's your name?" "I can give you a name, but it won't be my real one," she said, leaning in closer. "I work for the Air Johnny government. Also, I looked into your housekeeper and her family. They're all fine, except for her uncle. He's close to Rhodes. Be careful with him, he could be trouble." Peter took in her words, mentally noting the information for future reference. "Can you come back tonight? I need some time to rest first." That evening, the woman returned to Peter's office while Aliana was away visiting her parents. The official had more vital details to share. Rhodes uses 2 banks in addition to Global Constructions. He takes the salary funds from GC and exchanges half of it for Monat at another bank. The rest gets deposited into his account at a third foreign bank, one we can't access, she explained, handing Peter a log of camera footage and a notarized record translated into English. "Thanks for this," Peter said, grateful for her assistance. As she prepared to leave, she promised to keep an eye on Rhodes and stay in touch if she uncovered anything new. Feeling a newfound confidence, Peter started planning changes to streamline operations for the project, aiming to get things moving in the right direction. He asked the CEO to announce that someone would be assigned to investigate why the project was struggling. Peter had 2 main objectives: to push Rhodes into making mistakes and to start managing the project himself. Payday was approaching on Saturday, and the woman decided to follow Kevin Rhodes one last time on Friday as he went to the bank to collect the salaries. She recorded everything with her hidden camera. On Sunday morning, Peter, Aliana, and the woman gathered to review the footage from the hidden cameras in the office. They watched in shock as Rhodes handed envelopes of money to a man wearing a hood. The footage was clear, capturing not only the exchange but also the amounts of money involved. When the man turned, he briefly glanced at the camera, and Aliana gasped. "That's my uncle. He's involved in this too." The woman looked intrigued. "This is good. We can include him as well. He's the leader of a local gang, but we didn't have proof before. This changes everything." She turned to Peter, handing him a phone number. "Our agreement is still good?" "Absolutely," Peter affirmed. "I'll bring him out, and you can catch him at the airport." Peter kept the existence of the other laptop and the keylogger to himself. He hadn't needed the flash drive to copy the local database thanks to his other setup. He had bigger plans for that laptop. Meanwhile, Kevin Rhodes was feeling the pressure. Having someone new in charge meant he had to take risks he wanted to avoid, and he now had to pay off the local authorities to keep the workers in line. After a tough weekend, he walked into his office on Monday morning, frustrated and anxious. By 5 a.m., Peter was back in that same office, amused by his earlier oversight of not shutting down the laptop. He didn't even need the password. Eager to take action, he accessed Rhodes's bank account, the one used to conceal his ill-gotten gains. With a few clicks, he transferred all the money back into Global Construction's account, a small victory in his larger scheme. Once finished, he changed the password for the bank account, effectively locking Rhodes out. With the software that cloned the laptop removed, Peter felt a surge of adrenaline. The pieces were falling into place, and he was ready to take Rhodes down while ensuring the project's future. Now, all he had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. Peter was focused, meticulously sorting through the documents in his briefcase when Kevin barged into the office. Seeing Peter at his desk, furiously typing away on his laptop, Kevin's voice boomed across the room. "What are you doing here?" Peter felt a mix of relief and irritation. If Kevin was in charge, he would have been managing the situation poorly. Trouble had already brewed because of him, and now, Peter had to take control. He smiled slightly, his expression calm. "I've been here for a while, and I've noticed some very concerning activities that you seem to be at the center of." Kevin scoffed, arms crossed defiantly. "Like what?" "Scams and threats, for starters," Peter replied, keeping his tone steady. "From now on, I'll be taking over daily operations, and you will report to me." Kevin laughed bitterly. "Not going to happen. I'll be the first to leave if that's the case." Peter struggled to maintain his serious demeanor. The conversation was unfolding just as he had hoped. "Is that an option? How much time do you need to decide?" "None. I'm resigning right now. I'll print the form, sign it, and go." Kevin was adamant as he reached for the printer. Peter casually handed him the documents he had prepared in advance. "No need for that. I expected this." He had come fully prepared for this confrontation. Realizing he had been outsmarted, Kevin signed the resignation form, completely unaware that everything was being recorded. Standing up, he reached for the laptop. "That's company property, Kevin," Peter warned, his tone now serious. Kevin smirked. "So sue me." He dashed out the door, clutching the laptop tightly. Once Kevin was gone, Peter pulled out his phone and dialed the number the woman had given him. "He's gone. He resigned and took the laptop," he reported. "I'll need 3 days to process the resignation. After that, he's all yours." With that matter handled, Peter turned his attention to Aliana. He introduced her to the team, presenting her as his project accountant who would be responsible for reviewing the finances. He then asked HR to find out who had worked on the project and for how long, instructing them to prepare a detailed spreadsheet outlining everything Global Constructions owed, assuming they had been paid twice their salaries. Once that was sorted, he called in the interpreter, ensuring she promised to keep quiet about the upcoming changes. Half an hour later, Peter and the interpreter were welcomed into Aliana's parents' home. After a round of introductions and some steaming coffee, Aliana's father looked at Peter with curiosity. "So, what are your plans for the future?" Peter didn't hesitate. "Once this project is done, I want to go home with my fiancée and her daughter, whom I hope to adopt. I would also like your permission to marry your daughter." Aliana's mother beamed at him, while her father smiled, a tear shimmering in his eye. "Do you love her? Can you make her happy?" Peter nodded earnestly. "I love Aliana very much, and I care deeply for Petra as well. I respectfully ask for your blessing to marry your daughter." "You have my blessing, son," her father replied, his voice thick with emotion. "It's clear our daughter is happier than she has been in a long time, and that brings us great joy." Peter responded gently, "Aliana has told me about her past. I promise you that her brother-in-law will answer for his actions. I have a plan to address that." Later that morning, Peter returned to the office, where he found the spreadsheet completed. He checked the totals and confirmed they matched the amount he had transferred from Kevin's account. To ensure everything was above board, he headed to the bank to confirm that the same amount would be available for withdrawal the next morning. The rest of the day was spent speaking with the staff, reassuring them that he wasn't Kevin. Given the 10-hour time difference, he decided to call his CEO that evening. "My assignment is almost done," he said. "I just need to wrap up a few loose ends. The people here have been through a lot because of global constructions. I want to help them beyond just settling their payments. I've looked at the geological report, and I believe we can set up a freshwater well, but I need your approval for the costs." The response came quickly. "Go for it. It's not just about money, the company's image matters to me, too. When will you be back?" "I'm not sure yet," Peter replied. "We need to ensure that everyone who didn't get paid is taken care of. Kevin doesn't know yet, but I've already put the wrongfully used funds back into the Global Constructions account. I want to distribute the money directly to the employees. I need some time to check on the project," he continued. "Also, I want to get married here and bring my fiancée and her daughter with me. Plus, I want to be involved in getting the well drilled. Let me know when you're moving back. I will need time to pass my duties to you," his CEO replied. After ending the call, Peter reached out to Meredith. "Meredith Green speaking," she answered. "Good morning." "Good morning, Mrs. Green. This is Van Ryan. I hope you have a moment." "Mr. River, I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong number. It's extension 45. Please try again," she said, her tone clipped, before hanging up. Peter was taken aback by her response. He realized she felt uncomfortable using his name and was searching for a more discreet way to communicate. Intrigued by her mention of extension 45, he decided to wait. 15 minutes later, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. He picked up, and Meredith's warm voice filled the line. "You've certainly made quite an impression at the main office, Peter. What a situation. I'm so glad to hear from you. Have you found out who was behind everything?" "Yes," Peter replied, his tone serious. "I hope we identified the person responsible. The head of accountancy has been misusing funds from major projects for years," Meredith explained. "We worked with the FBI to check her office and home. When you called, she was still in my office. I didn't mention your name because we weren't sure if there were others involved. Now, she's in custody and helping with the investigation. Your information has been invaluable. How can I assist you? Are you planning to return soon?" "I expect to be back in about 3 months," Peter said softly. "I need a personal favor from you. I don't have a place to stay when I return. Normally, that wouldn't be a problem, but I'm coming back as a..." He paused, weighing his words carefully. This was just the beginning of a new chapter for him and Aliana, and he wanted to ensure everything was in place for their future together. Peter, a married man with a 10-year-old daughter, found himself in a complex situation. He hesitated but finally asked, "Is there any way you can help me?" Meredith chuckled softly, the warmth in her voice easing his tension. "Frank, my husband, is a real estate manager. He can help you find the perfect place. What exactly are you looking for?" They chatted for a bit, and Meredith soon called Frank to join their conversation. Frank reassured Peter that he had a good understanding of what he needed. Peter mentioned that he didn't have a strict budget, as a bonus was coming in soon. "So, no need to worry too much about the spending," he said with a slight smile. Through Meredith, Peter's lawyer had already sent over all the divorce papers, and now he felt ready to take the next step with Aliana. He made an appointment at the embassy and planned a trip to Baku for himself. The day had been long, leaving Peter both tired and on edge. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it painted the sky with a canvas of stars. Feeling restless, Peter slipped on his jacket, grabbed his telescope, and stepped out onto the balcony to gaze at the night sky. He poured himself a drink and set it on the railing, adjusting the telescope to get a better view. Just then, a loud crash shattered the stillness, followed by a distant sound that resembled a gunshot. Startled, Peter dropped to the floor, crawling back inside his apartment. He quickly closed the door behind him and rushed to his safe, retrieving his gun with his heart racing. A cold sweat trickled down his back as he fumbled for his phone, dialing the contact the woman had given him. The message was clear: "Stay inside and keep safe." Moments later, he heard someone trying to force the front door open. Without hesitation, Peter fired 2 warning shots low through the door. He heard a grunt followed by hurried footsteps retreating away from his apartment. The silence that followed was heavy, and his heart continued to pound in his chest. Soon, Peter's phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. He answered cautiously, "Yes? Peter, can you open the door without firing again?" A familiar voice said. Carefully, Peter moved upstairs to peek through the window. He spotted an Azerbaijani official standing outside, and he slowly made his way down, opening the door just a crack and stepping back, ready for anything. The woman entered calmly, her demeanor professional. "We've caught them. They're both hurt. They didn't expect you to defend yourself so well." Finally able to relax, Peter felt the tension release from his body, but he was exhausted and slightly nauseous from the adrenaline. He sank to the floor as the woman took charge of the situation. 30 minutes later, Aliana's car pulled up outside. Almost instantly, she rushed inside, her worry evident on her face. She pushed past the officials, heading straight for Peter. "Did they threaten you? Were you caught up in their plan?" The woman who had entered with Peter looked surprised at Aliana's strong reaction. "No, we had your uncle in custody before this all happened. I believe it was another outsider, possibly someone from the bank, helping him. He won't escape, the accomplice is hurt and is now working with the authorities." Meanwhile, Kevin was seething. He had hired 2 men to deal with Peter Van Rij, but they had failed, leaving him on the run. He was waiting for a private plane at a small airstrip near Baku, planning to escape to Tbilisi in Russia. There, he hoped to manage his secret account and disappear completely. Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw a woman standing beside a car, flanked by 3 men brandishing rifles aimed directly at him. "Kevin RHS, you are under arrest for conspiracy, theft, and extortion." Fear gripped Kevin, but the rifles made it clear that he had no chance of escape. They shoved him into the back of the police car and took him to a station, hoping that the main office hadn't yet discovered he had left his job. Monday morning, Peter received a call from HR informing him that one of the workers was in jail and needed assistance. Coincidentally, Peter was in Baku to buy an engagement ring and discuss matters regarding Aliana and her daughter, Petra, at the embassy. That afternoon, Peter found himself sitting across from Kevin, who looked utterly defeated. Peter chuckled, "What do you think I can do for you? You'll be here for a while, and I'm not going to help you." Kevin's eyes narrowed. "You have to help me. I know someone at the head office who will make things difficult for you if you don't." Peter laughed again, the sound harsh in the sterile room. You mean that person from accounting? She's on the case. Good luck with that. Kevin's face shifted from red with anger to pale with fear. He shrugged, attempting to mask his worry with a forced smile. At least I'll have my savings when I get out. You mean the money you stole from the company and the employees? Good luck with that. But remember this, the one who laughs last laughs best. With that, Peter turned and knocked on the door, leaving Kevin staring after him, puzzled. Next, Peter headed to a local jeweler. With the goldsmith's help, he designed a wedding ring that featured 3 intertwined bands, white, rose, and yellow gold, with a rose diamond in the center. This symbolized the bond between him, Aliana, and Petra. For Petra, he chose a delicate white gold ring with a small ruby. The jeweler had exquisite boxes made from mammoth ivory, and Peter bought 2, having them inlaid with gold. One box read, "Will you honor me by being my wife?" While the other said, "Will you be my daughter?" Everything was beautifully inscribed in Azerbaijani. The jeweler promised that everything would be ready by the following afternoon, just in time for Peter's return trip. Finally, he arranged the wedding ceremony at the embassy for the next week, planning for a larger celebration in the village afterward. On Wednesday morning, Peter arrived late. Exhausted from the previous day, he poured himself a drink and set his alarm before collapsing into bed. He woke abruptly to the blaring alarm, quickly getting up to shave and shower. With the 2 neatly wrapped boxes in hand, he drove swiftly to Aliana's parents' house, where she was staying while he was away. Arriving just in time, Peter knocked on the door, greeted warmly by Aliana's father. Stepping inside, he found Aliana and Petra in the living room, laughter filling the air. The sight of them together made his heart swell with anticipation for the future he was about to create. As they turned to face him, Peter knew that he was ready to take the leap into a new life, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of family. Aliana rushed into the kitchen, her heart racing. "I thought you left. You didn't say goodbye, and no one knew where you were," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of relief and concern. "I'll never leave you or Petra," Peter replied softly, a reassuring smile on his face. "Can we sit down for a moment?" Aliana's mother approached, setting a cup of steaming coffee in front of Peter, along with some freshly baked bread and honey. "Here you go, dear," she said warmly, before stepping back to let them have their moment. Peter looked deeply into Aliana's eyes, a sense of anticipation swirling between them. "I bought you a gift," he said, handing her and Petra small boxes wrapped in colorful paper. Aliana's parents started to make their way out, but Peter called after them, "Please stay. You might want to see this." With eager hands, Aliana tore open the wrapping, revealing a small box. The words inside made her face shift from surprise to joy and then back to surprise. Her mother peeked over her shoulder, saw what it said, and couldn't help but become emotional. Aliana nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, I will be your wife because I love you," she declared. She opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, sparkling under the kitchen lights. "Oh my goodness, it's beautiful!" her mother gasped, her voice thick with emotion. Petra, having opened her own gift, understood the significance of the moment. She hugged Peter tightly, her eyes shining with happiness. "Yes, Daddy," she cheered. Peter felt a swell of emotion as he embraced them. Aliana's mother wrapped him in a warm hug, while her father offered a firm handshake. "We need to marry at the embassy so I can officially adopt Petra," Peter explained, his voice steady with determination. "All the paperwork is ready. When we return, we can celebrate." Aliana shook her head. "I only want to celebrate with you, Petra, and my parents. The others didn't treat me well after my uncle. We won't have a party for those who don't deserve it." A week passed, bustling with activity for both of them. Peter had a project to catch up on, while Aliana received an unexpected letter from a woman regarding the Secret Service. While going through her uncle's house, she had discovered a will from her grandfather, stating that half of the land he owned was to be shared with her parents, along with the water rights. This revelation upset her mother, prompting Aliana to keep her away from her aunt. Finally, Peter and Aliana arrived at the embassy, leaving their luggage behind in the hotel. In a small, intimate ceremony, they exchanged vows, the air filled with love and commitment. Afterward, they completed the adoption papers for Petra. Later that day, they explored Baku, laughing and enjoying the sights like tourists. However, on the way back to the hotel, Aliana seemed quieter than usual, a flicker of nerves dancing in her eyes. Peter noticed her unease as they entered their room. He turned to her, concern etched on his face. "Is something bothering you? Please tell me." Aliana stood there, her arms at her sides, her head lowered, struggling to find the right words. Peter reached out gently, holding her softly. "Are you feeling nervous? It's okay to feel that way." "I am a bit," she admitted, shaking her head. "I'm scared. I've never been in a situation like this before. I'm afraid you might not think I'm good enough." Peter stepped closer, looking deeply into her eyes. "Don't worry about that. We'll learn from each other and discover what we both like. You are always enough for me. I think you're amazing. How about you take a bath to help you relax? Would you like something to drink?" Aliana smiled faintly, appreciating his kindness. "No drink. I'll take a quick shower, and then we can both relax." After her shower, Aliana lay on the bed, a light sheet draped over her. Peter joined her, wearing modest clothes that made him feel at ease. He could see the outline of her silhouette under the sheet. "Can I sit with you?" he asked gently. Aliana hesitated for a moment but then nodded. "I'm your wife. I trust you." Peter smiled, his heart swelling with affection. "Let's just take our time and be close." As Aliana moved a little closer, their bodies brushed together, sending warmth through both of them. Peter wrapped an arm around her and placed a soft kiss on her head. She looked up at him, and they both laughed, the tension easing. He playfully joked with her, and they felt more relaxed in each other's presence. They sat close, sharing quiet moments filled with warmth. Peter softly reminded her, "You know I love you, and I will never hurt you. We can go at your pace." Aliana smiled, her nerves calming as they continued to embrace. They relished the peace of being together, savoring the closeness that deepened their bond. After a while, they lay back, gazing up at the sky through the window, enjoying the warmth of the moment. Suddenly, a sound broke the stillness, and Aliana's heart raced as a rush of emotions surged within her. Peter gently moved closer, seeking to connect in that fleeting moment. Aliana felt a wave of happiness wash over her, and the intensity of the experience filled the air around them. They gradually caught their breath, relishing the shared moment. Aliana lifted her head and looked into Peter's eyes. "You were right, and I was wrong. Can we do that again tonight, please? I think I need a little time to rest now." That night, feeling a bit tired, Peter enjoyed the quiet closeness they had built. After bathing, they found comfort in each other's arms on the bed, cherishing the warmth that enveloped them. Peter moved softly, delighting in the little moments while Aliana responded with gentle joy. He took his time, treasuring the feelings they were creating together. When Aliana felt overwhelmed with happiness, she gasped, sharing how blissful she felt. After a while, as she appeared deep in thought, Peter noticed her distress and asked kindly, "What's wrong? Did I upset you?" "No, not at all," she replied quickly. "I was just worried everything might fall apart. But this feels so right. These are happy tears because you make me feel so special and cared for." Feeling calm, they drifted off to sleep in each other's embrace. Back in the village, Aliana's parents welcomed them warmly. Petra ran to Peter, calling him Dad with pure delight. Peter and Aliana had planned a family dinner at the company's office, excited to share their joy with everyone. Peter also set up a video call with his children. They knew about his plans to marry but had yet to meet Aliana and Petra due to the challenges he had faced in the past. As the call connected, Peter felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. He was ready to introduce his new family to those he loved, hoping for a warm acceptance that would finally bring everyone together. The challenges that once loomed over Peter were now firmly behind him. The project was moving forward, and in just a month or two, he envisioned returning home with his new family. With a sense of anticipation, he set up the big television screen, connecting it to his laptop to share this new chapter of his life. Seated on the couch, Aliana and her daughter, Petra, by his side, he opened the call. The screen lit up, revealing his children back home. Miranda's face beamed with excitement as she exclaimed, "Is that my new sister? Oh, Dad, she's beautiful. I can't wait to hug her." "Hi, Petra. I'm Miranda, and I promise to look after you." Aliana translated for Petra, who blushed and smiled shyly at the screen. Peter quickly jumped in, eager to keep the flow of conversation going. "Miranda, let me introduce you to my wife, Aliana, and her daughter, who is also your sister, Petra." After the introductions, Peter felt himself relax, watching the bond form between his children and Aliana. They spent the next few hours engaging in a fun game of questions and answers, laughter echoing through the room. As the night wore on, Petra eventually fell asleep, resting her head against Peter's shoulder. He decided it was time to end the call, bidding everyone goodbye before turning off the screen. Aliana, her eyes glistening with emotion, turned to him and said, "You have wonderful children. They feel so close in age now. I can see why you stay so young at heart." Fast forward 2.5 months, Victoria sat at the front desk of Global Constructions, a job she had initially taken to find out what had happened to her brother, Peter. He had gone missing, and this seemed like her best chance to uncover the truth. During her interview with the CEO, she had been warned about the serious reasons behind Peter's job loss, making it clear that if anything similar were to happen to him again, her own position could be in jeopardy. Since her supervisor had taken a position overseas, Victoria had unexpectedly been promoted. As she settled into her role, she often overheard rumors circulating about Peter, and she could tell he was well respected among his peers. One day, while working, she noticed a striking woman with short chestnut hair and long legs glancing her way. Intrigued, Victoria decided to approach her. "Good morning, I'm Meredith Green, head of security. Could we have a private chat?" Victoria felt a rush of nerves. Yes, of course. Where?" "In my office, if you wouldn't mind coming with me." Feeling uneasy, Victoria followed Meredith down the hall. Once inside the small office, she noticed a photo on the wall depicting Peter joyfully lifting a young boy over his head, both of them smiling broadly. She stared at it until Meredith broke the silence. "Yes, that picture means a lot to me. When you and Peter were apart, we formed a close bond. We realized we were too different to stay together, and I'm now happily married to someone else. But Peter helped me see that not all men are hard to understand." Before he left, we had a meaningful conversation about happiness. Victoria felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. "But that's not why I wanted to talk to you," Meredith continued, her voice steady. With hesitation, Victoria asked, "What do you want from me?" "Peter divorced me for a good reason. I know that now." "Peter is coming back soon," Meredith announced. "He's decided to cancel the restraining order against you, but the others remain in effect. Here's the important part of our conversation: you work here and will see a lot of him and his wife because she works at GC2. If I see anything inappropriate towards them, there will be consequences." Victoria was taken aback. This was the first time she had heard about Peter being with someone else so soon after their separation. "I understand your message," she stuttered. "I swear I don't want to harm Peter. If I hadn't made mistakes, we would still be together. I always cared for him but forgot to show him respect. I let others influence me too much. I want him to be happy, even if it's not with me. I don't deserve him anymore. Meredith looked at Victoria thoughtfully, considering the complexity of the situation. Perhaps you could help find a home for Peter and his family, she suggested, taking a deep breath. You must know what Peter likes. My husband is trying to find a house for him and his family. Would you be willing to help us? It seems we both care about him. But how can you still care for him if you're married to someone else? Victoria asked, confused. I do care for him, but as a dear friend, Meredith replied. You have a shared history and 3 wonderful children. You will see each other again. If you're careful and patient, you can be friends too. If you help us find a house, I will tell him about your efforts. It's a start. With newfound resolve, Victoria replied, I'll help. What can I do? The following week, a letter went out to all employees announcing a company party to welcome Peter Van Rij back to the main office the following Friday. On Tuesday, Peter, Aliana, and Petra arrived after a long trip. Aliana looked a bit pale, and Peter noticed she seemed uneasy. She suspected it might be because she was expecting a baby, a possibility that had crossed her mind since their wedding night. Meredith, Frank, and the CEO were there to greet them. Meredith had seen Aliana in many video calls and thought she looked even more radiant in person. The 2 women had quickly become close friends. While the adults chatted happily, Meredith and her brothers took Petra under their wing, making her laugh and helping her feel at ease. The CEO turned to Peter and said, Take a week to settle in. After that, we'll start handing over some of the CEO's responsibilities to you. 10 days later, on a Friday afternoon, the CEO stepped up to the microphone as the room quieted, all eyes trained on the stage. He could feel the anticipation in the air as he prepared to make an important announcement.